Awesome. And we're live with Erin and Maia, co-founders of Nav.it. Awesome to have you both here.
Hi, John. Thanks so much for having us.
Exactly. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And we were throwing around some jokes before this. It's a good time. We were talking about plaid. Excited to dive right in. What is Nav.it and what are both of you up to over there?
Oh, what a question. So Nav.it is on a mission to foster financial well-being for all. So we're taking behavioral science, we're applying it to a digital health platform, and we're giving people a roadmap to achieve financial wellness. I can let Maia tell the rest, but there we are.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we up to right now, Erin? Well, we're about to launch a whole new suite of features. So we're super excited to be launching what we're calling our Nav.it Mindset subscription to all here in a couple of short weeks. You can sign up for the waitlist now at Nav.money.com. I'm the CMO and co-founder here, so I will be interjecting all the plugins to go download our app. But I'm in Sun Valley, Idaho. Erin's in Seattle, so we're a remote-based team and have been so even pre-pandemic and thriving as we both have been vaccinated and are moving out of the hurdle. Yeah.
I just got my first one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna get the J&J one and done soon.
Great.
My co-founder Sebastian did too, and he was not too happy after the second. But I held my curiosity back as we were just chatting before. How did you two meet, get connected, and decide to start this thing together? I love, we love as a team anything in the behavioral science world, especially as it's aimed at making people healthier, happier, more well from the perspective of money as well. So would love to learn more about the founding story.
Yeah, we have a great two-part story. So I'll tell my side of it. She can tell the other side.
Yeah.
So I was gifted a executive coach, 5 sessions from an advisor of ours. And by the second or third one, I had told this woman that I was looking for a co-founder, and she said, "I think I have someone you need to meet." And Maia, you tell how you met her, and then we can talk about our epic coffee.
Yes, sure. So I was coming back from a work trip. I was already living in Sun Valley at the time and working remotely and commuting quite a lot. Coming back from a trip in the Bay Area, and I'm the typical techie who hood up, headphones in on an airplane. Do not speak to me. Do not encroach my personal space. And this woman sat down next to me and just started chatting. I was like, oh God, strap in. Yeah. But she was lovely. We got to chatting, and, an hour and a half later, as the plane was touching down in Sun Valley, she'd convinced me that not only did I need executive coaching, but I needed her to help me do that. Great saleswoman, but also brilliant at her job. And I think within the first session or second session, she's like, well, you need to get out of fitness technology. That's abundantly clear. You've done this, you've built this amazing product, it's on to your next venture. And I really think that your heart's in fintech. And I was like, fintech. And she was like, and I have the perfect person to go set out on this next step of your life with. And that person was Erin. And maybe a few weeks later, Erin coincidentally was visiting family here in Sun Valley. We sat down for, I think, maybe a 45-minute coffee, and 6 hours later, multiple meals later, we both eat quite a lot, and multiple meetings kind of, batting back and forth. Erin had pretty much sold me that I was going to join her team.
We started CMO, blah, blah. And I was like, no, co-founder. And we both lit up. We're like, yes, that's it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
So at that point, Erin, did you have the seedling of an idea in your head, and what did it look like then?
Yeah, so we had been already kind of working on it for probably a year-ish plus. No, that's not true. It was August 2019, and we had launched our beta version of the budgeting app in February of that year. So we did have this beta version in the market. We were starting to collect a lot of user research and really interesting statistics, and we were starting to understand kind of where we wanted to go and how we could kind of shape, the behavioral science aspects, the like choice architecture we were using. But it was really perfect timing because Maya is obviously a CMO, so she was like able to take it to the next level in terms of growth and really like getting deeper into who our users were, the personas, et cetera. And also at the time we were focused on women. And one of the things I realized was our North Star, like really in relationship with Maya, we realized our North Star was always financial health and wellness. And that is really a non-gender specific topic, right? It's something that we believe should be accessible for all. And how we were changing the narrative was really about talking about how your cognitive health, your mental health associates with your behavior around finances, and thinking much more strategically about what are your triggers around it, what's your money story, how do you relate to it on a daily basis or with your partner often, that has a lot of implications. And how do we then create a framework that you can identify yourself, your self-awareness grows about how you deal with money, and then we can give you the next kind of baby steps to achieve changes in behavior or see the like roadmap to financial health. So at the time, I was kind of working through all that, and Maya came in from a fit tech perspective, which was, so I come from behavioral science, she comes from fitness technology, and really had that layer. I mean, I'm speaking for her, so let me punt it back, but has that layer of the elite athlete kind of structure and training that is very similar to the digital health space. So Maya, maybe I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll quickly add one of the things that I think we first identified maybe in that first meeting or shortly thereafter was the value of financial habit, like creating strong foundations that improve financial habits incrementally, which then build great financial behaviors over time, which, you know, improve resiliency and really get you to a level of kind of financial control and understanding about yourself and your opportunities ahead, and make you feel, you know, less paralyzed and much more motivated to go out there and like achieve those goals. And I think something that I learned early on from fitness technology and just the fitness space is frankly the power of data and the power of kind of prescriptive coaching and analytics that really power us as kind of this quantified self user, right? As millennials in 2021, we're just driven by data in every sense of the word. And the more that a tool like ours can deliberately and explicitly and informatively kind of give that data, serve that data back to us as a consumer and say, this is where you are, this is what your kind of opportunity looks like, and these are the incremental steps we can change or alter to help you get there faster, help you get there in a different way. It's a really empowering driver. And, you know, we always say like championships are won, you know, off the field, right? And we're kind of applying that same thing where, you know, financial wins happen from daily incremental practices and realizing that not every day is going to be your best, but you're still able to get back up and realize a new opportunity and a new outcome that, you know, you might not have if you didn't have a solid foundation at your feet.
So cool. And can definitely find it really interesting because my background was in the natural foods industry. And I kind of approached being in fintech from being in the physical health and mental health space, going through my own challenges, overcoming them, and have always been interested in creating greater access and affordability to health and wellness. And Sebastian, my co-founder, really is the behavioral scientist on our team, and really got me to see the intersection between how you spend your money and your physical and mental health. So I think there's a lot to zoom into and explore there. Really excited. In terms of the product, I like to sometimes get like a little bit deeper, and I told you both that I downloaded it and was playing around with it just before this. So, you go into the product, you set up an account, asks you some questions, you can link your bank account and your cards through an integration. And then from there, can you walk us through what the product looks like today? And then as you think about the vision of the product and what it's going to look like tomorrow or, a year, 5 years from now, what are you most excited about?
Absolutely. Thank you. So right now we have this incredible aspect of this daily money mindset check-in. So we're really getting incredible data that people are able to go and do everything you just said, connect their bank accounts. We help them organize their budget. They see kind of goals and their money, how they're spending it. But then we ask them to do this daily money mindset check-in. So they're starting to check in, okay, how am I feeling today? Why am I feeling that way? And then over time, as we build, and this is like the exciting thing that's coming out in the next month is our subscription model will help them also be able to identify what transactions are serving them and what transactions are depleting them. So for example, like we actually call them transaction swipes. We're taking the good old like Bumble, like dislike swipes of the dating apps. And we're giving people a chance. It's a daily practice. So it's literally just the day before, the kind of whichever ones you want to, the transactions you've had from the day before. But you check your mood, you check your mindset, you say why, and then you do the swipes and kind of start to build this persona of understanding of how your moods could potentially be affecting your spending, how your spending is related, and the trends in the spending over a month period. Because we all are in a monthly financial cycle that, of course, has a quarterly and then yearly. But you start to really see trends, and then we're able to serve back that data and show you connections with what was happening in your life, with your spending. Also, just the things that you say aren't serving you, why. You can start to think about that, and then you can make predictive analytics. You can start to say, okay, what do I want to do next week? If next week I know, the second week of the month, I tend to spend this. Is that what I'm looking at spending? Do I want to reduce that? Do I want to, am I okay with it? And you start to kind of have this coaching element to it when you start to log that data in on a daily basis. So that swiping is coming out in the next month, but right now you can still check your mindset and you start to get that trend. You start to see how it associates with your overall spending. And then then we have a community feed, which is really exciting. I think Maia and I are both really excited about this part because part of behavior change, and I'm sure your co-founder talks about this a lot, is the reinforcement. So you start to, first is the self-awareness. You start to identify what your behavior is. So you're starting to think about, okay, what am I spending on? How am I feeling? Right. And then you start to say, okay, am I interested in taking a next incremental step to change that, right? So what's the next step that I can, like my baby micro goals each day? And then the reinforcement is in seeing other people like you spending money or setting up goals and achieving them, or just generally kind of normalizing the conversation around, we are all adults. By virtue of the fact we are adults, we are managing money. So how are you managing? How am I managing it? Can I be better by learning from you and seeing how other people are managing it? So there's a lot of the behavioral science stuff coming out that I'm really excited about right now. That leads to lending, which I'll let Maia talk about in a second. But so we'll have all that. The kind of key check-ins are now out in the market. We have this subscription that we're recruiting for and that we have a wait list for. It's coming out in the next month. And then over time, we'll build the community side. And then we go into banking tools. So I'll let Maia talk a little bit about our banking tools.
Yeah, I'll touch on them briefly. I think the banking tools is maybe one of the more obvious parts of our roadmap because we are, of course, a consumer fintech at the end of the day. But we have an auto savings account built into the app already. We do that through connecting to an FDIC insured banking partner of ours. But what we find really compelling around this kind of building of financial behaviors and building of financial resilience over time is frankly the underwriting strategies, right? We're kind of here to build better behavior-based underwriting strategies to include, frankly, more people into financial opportunities, right? The end game for us is to really build financial well-being for all. And what that really means is to provide better, clearer, more accessible, more affordable financial solutions to more people that otherwise might not have been served or might have been overlooked by traditional banking. So certainly that doesn't mean that we're not just targeting the under or unbanked. I think our population kind of varies, but it's an opportunity to say, in addition to your FICO score, in addition to the existing kind of institutional underwriting strategies, how can Nav.it help prove and improve your credit worthiness over time? For example, how can we prove that your resilience, the fact that you've been on this thing, using, learning, building your self-efficacy, building your resilience over time, proves that you're not just worthy of a small dollar loan, but you're so much more worthy in growing your financial wealth in a healthy, sustainable way than maybe your bank branch on the corner of Main Street thinks you are.
Super cool. And, with the small sample size that you have right now, what are you learning? And are there any more general mistakes that you can start to apply towards a broader population of how folks manage their money and how they relate to money?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what our premise is that everyone manages their money differently. So I don't think we we wouldn't say that people make mistakes, but what we see is that people don't understand the way the system works. And I think that becomes the kind of thing that we harp on. So when you connect your accounts, we also give you a financial health score. And that is really looking at the three kind of core banking, like the foundation of banking that you need. So income to expense ratio, are you spending less than you earn? Do you have an emergency fund? 3 to 6 months is the typical, and then high interest debt. Do you have high interest debt? And we don't really look at investing and student loans, though those are kind of important things. But these are kind of the three. If you have these three things down, you don't have high interest debt, you have an emergency fund, and you're spending less than you earn, you have the foundation to be able to really think about, okay, what's my next step in wealth generation? Is it taking off those student loans? Is it saving for a mortgage? Is it thinking about my investment strategy in a more diversified way? And so what we're able to do is really say, okay, here is our assessment. Here's where you can work on it. And how can you move like the needle on that financial health score that then gets you access to, as Maia was saying, better, lower cost lending products. We have a lot of referral partners that you can get into other, insurance and investing, et cetera. So I think what we see is really, I'd say our population is about 20 to 40-year-olds, 22 to 35 are kind of prime. They are income earners, and they do tend to have pretty, like at least one of those three they're good with. Like, it's interesting that like either they have an emergency fund, but they're spending a little bit more than they earn, and they have this like kind of reoccurring debt going on, or they don't have any high interest debt, but they don't really have a padding. So we're able to kind of assess that and help people take the next 2 steps towards fixing that so that their health grows. And I think, that's pretty consistent in our population, because they're looking for solutions. They're not quite sure where to start. So by giving them this assessment and then giving them kind of the next 2 action items, it really helps them kind of see that financial health is achievable for them.
And that's really been our key inflection point as we start to provide a service directly to employers and these corporate partners too, who are coming to us saying, we offer all of these plans, we offer all these perks, thanks to JOON, we can do that. However, we also need a tool that can frankly provide some level of financial literacy, self-efficacy, some kind of roadmap to create this foundation that many in our population don't seem to have directly served yet, right? We're, especially in the millennial demographic that Erin spoke to, we're the first generation, if you're a millennial, I'm a millennial, that, has not only experienced higher debt rates than any other generation before, but we also have the lowest level of financial literacy, because we are the first generation where financial literacy was completely stripped from our curriculum at an early age. So, though there's so many compounding factors to financial exclusion and all of the other systemic issues that are preventative in our environment, financial literacy to that population is really important, because they are offering really compelling benefits, and they want to make sure that their population is activating them to the best of their capacity. And that really starts with that foundation to financial health, like Erin spoke to.
And there's so much to unpack there, and as what came to mind as you two were talking about the product, and the problem is that there's so many fintech products out there that are focused on investing and are focused on looking at your financial score in some capacity. You think of something like Mint by Intuit. Like, how did, Erin, as you were building this thing, like how did you decide what to build as you dove in? Was that inspired by your education? And I know you have the MPH on your name, the Master's.
Yeah, I don't know. Health. I'm sorry, I don't know how that got up there. I was like,
it
popped up.
It's good conversation.
I did not write that. It showed up, and I was like, okay, that's what we're doing.
No, it's cool, because I thought about like with my background and interests in terms of like creating greater access and affordability to health and wellness, I thought about pursuing those types of programs too. So I'm curious, like even maybe double clicking a little bit in Erin into your background. How did you decide that you wanted to focus on financial health? And then how did you come up with that initial product as you looked at the competitive landscape and decided what your starting point would be?
Yes, thank you. And it definitely has been an iteration over time. So this is a group effort. We do this. But my background is, as you say, I have a master's of public health. I worked overseas for over 12 years in basically access to healthcare and access to financial services for marginalized populations. But what I was doing over there, it seems very crazy to like jump from that to a fintech, which, there is an element of craziness in that, but there is a through line in the sense that what I was doing overseas was I used 3 key things to build programs that really fundamentally changed the trajectory of our populations. First was access to the service, so access to the health center, access to, a financial service, usually like a peer-to-peer lending service in some way, shape, or form, or education. So access to a product and the reason why. So you have to educate on why that service is useful. Why is it useful to get your, STI check regularly? Why is it useful to get your kid, preventative immunizations? Why are you accessing peer-to-peer lending, and how can that grow your wealth, right? So really respecting and ensuring the whys there. I think, I'm going to side note, I think fintechs forget that about the human element of, hey, I'm going to provide you this investing platform, but why do you need it? Like, how does it actually impact your life? What's the reason that builds your wealth? So that was one that was the one step in our behavioral program. The second one was a daily habit. So really going to that micro level of incremental change is the way that you, to Maia's point, how you train for a marathon, right? How really any major behavior change is taken, how you stop eating chocolate. It's not just one day you stop, right? It's maybe over time you reduce to 1 chocolate, or one day a week, or, it's like you have to have these incremental changes. And what I was doing overseas was literally, it was STI training. So it's like wearing a condom for sex workers, like, just put on the condom with the clients, right? And just one day at a time. And here you have, anyways, it's very complicated. But so here's the daily action. Saving is like put the $1 a day under your bed so that over time you have access to a emergency fund so you can pay for your kids' school, right? And then the third part and the key element, which I think people also don't always understand, is then you need reinforcement. So you need peer-to-peer education and that community side of it. Because what you end up doing is, unless you're hyper motivated, like usually an athlete, where you just are so driven to achieve your goals and be the best that you want to be, if you don't have the social, they call it social impact, or the social environment that reinforces that behavior, you're much less likely to sustain that change over time, that little habit that you're building. So, I mean, there are statistics that show if you have friends that are, 15 pounds overweight, you're more likely to be at least 10 pounds overweight, right? If you have friends that work out a lot, you're more likely to work out on a regular basis. Like that peer education and reinforcement is really key. So I was doing really effective work. It was working. We were at, creating access for 200,000 people. We were changing policies. And when I came back to the United States in 2015, I looked around and I said, look, our healthcare system is insane. Like, there's so many problems. I was doing preventative medicine. I was like getting to people before they got these diseases. And that was really effective, right? When I came back here, I was like, there's state level, county level, federal level, like our health system is crazy. And access is a little bit less of the problem than just the system itself. That's not where my happy place is. But when I look at financial health and I see all of my friends, like, middle income, diverse women and men who are so confused about the financial system. They're trying to make decisions. Their wages have stagnated, so they don't have the same kind of buying power. They're trying to figure out if they're going to pay down their loan, or should they invest, pay down their student loans, or should they be investing for a house, or should they be, paying off their credit card versus thinking about doing a 409, like the kids investment fund for their children, right? Like, there's so many constant questions. There's, as Maia said, a lack of understanding. And there's no roadmap for people to say, this is how the system works. If you get, you got to build incrementally, back to my 3, here's the access, here are what the services are, here's why you need them. Here's a daily habit. You got to start somewhere basic, go small, start building over time to get to your end goal. And then you need to talk about it. And that was one thing I saw as a major need, is that there's just we had not normalized the conversation about money. And I think we actually have. In the last 5 years, it's gone a lot better with fintechs than now being more prolific in the market. But there's just not a normalization of asking your friend how much you're making, or asking your friend, how much did you spend on your car, or just normalizing this conversation, so it becomes part of everyday life, that it's just a part. It's not something we can ignore. It's just a reality that like I said, you are an adult, you are required to manage money. So can I apply those 3 key elements to behavior change to a financial health environment and build resilience and grit and give people that incremental behavior change over time. So it's a long-winded answer, but that is how it went.
It's essentially attention, discussion,
answers.
and practice, right?
Yeah. So like if I'm a future Nav.it member and I want to buy a home, will I eventually be able to, plug and play how much I'm making, how much I'm going to be making next year, how much I'm spending on a week-to-week basis or monthly basis, and then you guys will help me develop a plan of how I can go ahead and buy that home, and then maybe even introduce me to the lenders that will help me along that path?
Yeah. So what we have now, so let's say you want to go buy a home. We give you the content and the resources you need. So if we give you incremental daily activity, like a quiz, do you know about this? Like, do you know what a title company is? Are you looking at what is Zillow? Like, how are you thinking about Zillow? And then we give you calculators to talk about, what is your buying power, right? The calculators are a really lovely element of our product where you can go in and look at, if you have an APR of $5,000 loan with an APR of 25%, what would that actually be over time and how much would that cost you? And then we have the kind of that daily understanding of your trends and your data to be able to show you, if you make these incremental steps, here's how much you can save over time and how you can set up automated savings goals in our app. So yes, you can actually see, we're not going to be prescriptive in the sense, we do have financial coaches on the platform, which is another key element.
I think it said unlimited financial coaching.
Yeah, for the subscription now, yes, absolutely. Yeah, so you can DM a coach and they have access, they can start to talk you through kind of a lot of those aspects of it, because each person is different. So our kind of concept is, if we teach you how you're spending money, your relationship with money, and then we teach you how the system works, then you can navigate it on your own, or you can navigate with the help of our coaches. But those are the two key things. You have to understand yourself and your relationship with your money, and then you need to understand how the system works, like where you're going to get screwed because the system is not an obviously, altruistic environment that wants your best or to save you money, right? So if you understand the system, then you can kind of help navigate it more confidently.
And the next step too, to answer your question, John, around how we connect to different partners, different potential lenders, that is definitely on the roadmap, and we're actually already starting to map that out. So we're really excited to work with more folks, or more brands rather, in the near future.
Cool. And Erin, I can now clearly see like your background. You're working with these underserved humans in the world. Marginalized communities, and you bring this behavioral science piece, the same logic that you applied into helping people with their STIs, you're now applying that to this issue in the US that's widespread. And then Maia, I'm curious on your end, you mentioned fitness technology.
Yeah.
What kind of skills did you hone in over your career until the point where you joined Nav.it and teamed up with Erin that have helped you get to this point? Like what do you get excited about when you join the team? You're like, let's get this in as many people's hands as possible.
This is a great question. Well, I'm a growth marketer by trade. So I have my master's in marketing strategy and innovation. And I love early stage tech. And that's kind of my bread and butter. The last company I came from, I was running growth and communication there. So where I think I have an interesting addition to the team, and where I think Erin and Erin said this to me today. She's like, "Oh, we're just yin and yang. We are yin and yang."
It's true. She's my other half.
I am really interested in data, and I think we're both really interested in data. But again, as I was in this high performing environment with the most elite athletes and coaches in the world, I mean, we were a direct to consumer product, but we were really selling B2B SaaS. Like, we were really focused on selling our solution into the most elite organizations across the world to track Olympic, professional, semi-pro, you name it. So we're working with really fascinating individuals who are, I think, probably the most gritty, the most resilient human beings in, frankly, on the world, right, on the planet. And I was really intrigued because we started working more closely with them, and I started to learn, especially from the athlete angle and to the coaching to some extent too, that, you know, if you weren't on prime time, you weren't making the big bucks. You just weren't. And so these were people that we championed, we, you know, created kind of brands around, but at the end of the day, if they didn't have the sponsorship dollars, especially, you know, on the female market, they weren't getting the primetime exposure, then they were truly barely making ends meet. They were barely living above the poverty line, which meant that they had zero access to wealth generating opportunities, which struck me as really profound because, again, these were the most like hardened, toughest minds you could probably ever come across. I mean, they can literally endure and succeed at anything. And banks were shutting them out of the picture. And so when Erin and I met, I think this is where we started to really craft this idea around financial resiliency and financial control. Whereas, you know, how can we start to better evaluate, foster, and like build financial resilience from these same learnings that we've seen in the high performance world, right? Like, we know how an athlete improves their grit over time. Angela Duckworth is the lead scientist and researcher in the study, where you say, you know, you take one of 1,500 Marine candidates, one of them will succeed, and they succeed not because of their physical strength or really their IQ. They succeed because of this extra element, and it's something that can be grown and fostered and manifested across every aspect of your life. And so that was something that really got me excited, was how can we deliver to the everyday user, the everyday Erin and Maia, you know, a financial resilience component and score and thing that you can, again, foster and improve upon over time, which you can then correlate to your financial opportunities. So you can then correlate to your financial or to your wealth generation over time. And then you can bring that to any bank and say, hey, listen, I know that, you know, I've been shut out of the financial conversation to date, but look at my Nav.it score. Look at how capable I am at paying down, you know, a non-egregious rate loan. And that's something that really gets me excited. And I think because of that experience, I'm very entrenched in the financial inclusion, wealth gap conversation. And that's kind of where I like to live. And like I said, I mean, as I was selling B2B SaaS, I think that this is a really interesting implication for healthcare providers, for consultants, for any large scale enterprise or even medium-sized firm that's looking to prevent all of the financial pitfalls that the millennial generation especially is starting to endure, right? I mean, the employer really has the power here, because to Erin's point, unfortunately, our solutions are not going to come from the public sector, right? Government is not going to catch up in time. Healthcare, universal healthcare is not going to happen in this country, at least in our immediate future. So, you know, it's really to the, I think, power of the employer to help provide solutions that actually move the needle.
Yeah, and I guess just to dive a little bit deeper into that, you know, there's products on the market that sell directly to employers now. You know, financial health is a benefit. So you all have decided to go the B2C approach, and then work with partners such as JOON to get in front of employers. Yeah, how do you think about that more broadly? It's like, you know, competitive landscape, as there's other companies, you know, not necessarily doing the same thing, but focused on the market, like the employer market. How do you stand out and offer differentiated value? I think at the end of the day, when you're doing something good and that's mission aligned, you know, even if it's a competitor, to some respect, you're down with it because you want people to get better. But curious to ask how you think about that.
Yeah. I'm happy to take this one. I think it's certainly an interesting model. And, you know, we're very strategically aligned in calling them corporate partnerships because, you know, from a revenue standpoint, we're a subscription-based model. So whether or not that subscription dollar is coming from the consumer or it's coming directly from the employer, the healthcare provider, or you name the entity, you know, we're a cheap enough service. Frankly, we're a value enough service to be able to implement at scale and provide to a wide range of demographics. So whether or not, you know, it's demographic variables within one firm or frankly across a book of business, it's a solution that we see as providing a customizable yet wide stroked enough approach to really solve the pain points for a lot of these employers that are really struggling to offer, I think, comprehensive plans that also include this foundation to financial well-being. I mean, there's a bunch of coursework out there. There's a bunch of web-based, kind of course-based, generic financial literacy, but there's not something that's a customizable enough approach that not only is a solution for the employee, but is also a solution for every income earner that impacts that household's income. Right? So as focusing and building a product directly to the consumer, we can also be a tag-along offer to every other person in that employee's environment that contributes to their overall well-being. And that's a really important factor for us. And whether or not the employer wants to, kind of pay into that model, or they just want to support the employee, that does not mean that that does not leave out the other people in that employee's environment that impact their livelihood. And I think that that's frankly one of the learnings we had from beta, where we had these millennial women coming to us saying, we get it, women have been left out, we get it, but guess what? I really want my partner to use Nav.it with me, or I really want my roommate to use Nav.it with me, and he's a male and he feels excluded, and I don't think that's right. And frankly, we've taken the exact same approach to the employer, and it's working.
I think what's interesting about that too is that one of the pain points, and I'd be interested to actually hear your perspective here, but one of the pain points we hear a lot from employers is employee engagement on products like this. And I think what we're trying to do, and why the B2C play is also really effective in the B2B2C market, is that we understand the consumer. The product is differentiated so dramatically from the employer that they're never going to, see their data. It feels very much like a product that is a perk of the employee workplace, and thus we can drive engagement and really like understanding of the aggregated data at a really profound level. And that is mainly because we have a brand in the B2C marketplace. So people feel affinity to something that is outside of their employer. And that's been really effective for us as we kind of move forward thinking about how do we really engage our populations.
Yeah, I think any app is hard. Like when I think about what app have I used consistently over the last 10 years or so, as I've made my own
10 years, Lord.
Yeah, as I made even over the last few years, like it's just hard to get that engagement with anything. But what I'm hearing from y'all is one, like winning from a product perspective, like the fact that you guys are really know behavioral science and are integrating that into the product means like the product is actually more effective. The other takeaway for me is that you're looking into Maia's background, maybe in terms of fitness professionals or athletes, thinking about two things. One, mindset, and just making sure that people like have their head on right and are focusing on the right things. So like a form of like mindfulness applied towards your money. And then the other is like compounding, atomic habits, like compounding little things that will then add up over time. I'm having so much fun talking to you that I'm looking at the time, and I'm just hoping that we could go for a little bit longer, because I'm curious around just thinking about you two as individuals. And when you think about those two things, mindset being one, and two being these atomic habits or habits, micro habits that you are layering on top of each other. How has that evolved for both of you as individuals and as leaders, as you think about, like, I'm not going to say 10, maybe 10 years, but like the last few years, as you think about how you two have evolved, whether it's from a financial perspective or whether it's completely focused on physical health or mental health as individuals?
Oh my, can I take this first?
You go first.
Oh Lord, I got some good ones. I think for
Should we answer it for each other, or
yeah, why not?
No.
I definitely have one for you. I know she already has the atomic.
I'm sure my co-founder Sebastian could just like read my brain and tell you.
We know her answer.
Yeah. The work life is real.
Right, it's true, and I'm grateful. For me, what you just said about mindset, you've nailed it. Like that is what we were both saying. This is a mindset play. This is thinking about resilience, building grit. And I cannot tell you how becoming an entrepreneur in a financial technology has been the ultimate challenge in building resilience and grit. And that a bit like really taking the time to walk our talk about finances, but really about thinking about what triggers me and how I like when you get knocked down, which is inevitable in this world. You get a lot of no's as you're pitching. You get, employee staff stuff that is painful and, you're just getting knocked down all the time. That ability to stand back up, to realize like that you're not a victim, one, and also this isn't the end of the world, two, like this is an opportunity to learn and to grow and to be better. And, that takes a lot of grit and resilience, but every time you get that knockdown, you're standing back up, and I am so grateful to have my work wife, like to have a wonderful co-founder that can be the sounding board. I'm sure you feel that way too, John, like to talk through it, to think about, okay, what's us? Because the other thing you have to do in this world, and especially in this entrepreneur world, is like, you have to differentiate what you could have done better, but also just what was not meant to be. Right? You're just going to get a bunch of investors that aren't the right fit for you, irregardless of how amazing your pitch was, or irregardless of, what you said at what stage. So it's really going deep into that. And again, resilience and grit to almost, for me, it's like detaching from the emotion of it and looking at it really concretely and practical. Like, what are my lessons to learn? What was the situation, the context, and where am I right? Where am I wrong? How can I learn? And then how can I keep moving forward and keep manifesting an environment of abundance and grit? And so, yeah, that's for me. And my last one, I know what she's going to say. Exercise and physical health is my catalyst to all de-stressing. So building that like increment, like when Nav.it has been so stressful, to like get on that stupid Peloton bike and just sweat it out has been like the physical and mental connection of building resilience for me. Now she can tell you about her.
No, I can't. And just to say like that physical health piece is so important. I almost forgot. And last week I went to like my first yoga class in over a year, and it felt like I had taken some antidepressants.
Yes.
Like I was like, why am I so much happier? Oh, I got yoga class.
Endorphins. Yeah. Yes. It's real.
I love that. Well, and I think, maybe to piggyback off of that statement, John, and also what Erin said, I think for me, it's like a heightened level of self-awareness as who I am as a leader, as who I am as a person, and to that same aspect, like what I need in my life, so if I need, like, I prioritize fitness. So I do the hardest thing of my day first, which I really think is categorically the most fun, which is exercise. And, and I think that is something that fuels me, that drives me, that also distresses me. And in the same light, I think, especially in the last year with COVID and all these external barriers and stressors and unforeseen ups and downs, I think recognizing who I am like more completely, which sounds super woo-woo, and I am not the woo-woo of the two of us. So no. I'm sure you figured that out by now. But, I think a great example of this is I'm a really horrible sleeper. And, I used to, I'm the person that like, if I'm still up at midnight, I'm like, well, I might as well get up for the day because I'm never going to sleep. And this is going to be the worst day of my life. And I think it's partly Erin who has taught me a little bit more about this, but actually starting to recognize a little bit more about like how I perform the next day if I do lose sleep. And instead of like checking in with myself and being more self-aware, has ironically helped me sleep better, but also in the nights when I don't sleep well, I'm not stressing over how I'm going to perform the next day. And I think that's the same kind of thing that applies to like my work environment, where if I, foresee something that's going to cause me stress in the next 2 days, or something that I'm really anxious about, or something that might question my resolve, I have so many more data points that can coach me through those kinds of emotions. And like, I've now kind of navigated a lot of ups and downs, especially in the last 2 years, or, really 3 years, that I no longer feel, I think, self-conscious. I think a lot of millennial founders too have this kind of sense of like imposter syndrome, for better or worse. I think that's something that we've also kind of come out of our shell a little bit more as we built this product, and we've seen customers love it, and we've seen employers love it, and we've just finally proven ourselves in the market. And that's frankly been a really big win for us, both from a business standpoint and from a leadership perspective and emotional perspective.
Oh.
That was beautiful. Congrats on everything you two have built, and you're both so awesome and have great energy. Just getting a little woo-woo.
Thank you, John. You and me.
Well,
buddy.
we're gonna have to, John, you and Sebastian are gonna have to come on our podcast next. And
Would love that.
You.
Yeah, we'd love that. Yeah, you both have incredible dynamic. I could just tell, like, just from just the call. And I think that's a big part of, for me also, what's gotten me through the ups and downs of the journey is like thinking about it as a marathon rather than a race. Building self-development and personal development and self-awareness into the practice of starting a business, whether it's journaling as much as I can about like what were the wins for the day, what were the things that challenged me or needed improvement, and then also maybe like even setting some intentions for the next day. It is something that I've exercised and has gone a long way in terms of the journey. And then I can also relate to the fact of like, once you even have that success and people love the product, you have thousands of users or members, and then you still, there's a part of you that is like, has that critique, that self-critique. So also learning how to shut that off with fitness or yoga classes. There's a lot of alignment there. I usually like to end these conversations with just thinking about or asking about what you're most excited about, whether it's as you're thinking about the future of the business, or as you're thinking about, maybe for Erin, more behavioral science integrated into technology.
Yes.
Yeah. What gets you excited?
Oh man, you only have a couple more minutes, right?
Yeah.
You know what? Maia has
We're
been
already over.
I know. Okay. I'll be respectful. She knows this, and it's been something we've built into our company that I'm really passionate about and has just had so many dividends, is anti-bias design. So we have, it's a, humane technology. Tristan Harris was one of the first guys that talked about it. You probably saw The Social Dilemma that came out later, but he's been talking about what is humane technology and how do we build as practitioners a product from the beginning that is questioning the secondary effects and thinking, you can't completely, mitigate all bias or mitigate secondary harm, but you can think about it, and you can really, from the beginning of your product, integrate it into your organization of how can we create an environment where we question ourselves? Like, we think we're doing something good in the world. We think we're going to help consumers, but there's always something you're not thinking of. So how do you create a safe environment? And we do that in our whole team. We have these opposite days where people come, we take one of our features, everyone in like the whole company comes with a counter argument. It's like, safe space, come and counter argument this feature that we're talking about and tell us. And it just, the depth that you get of that in the team, building the brand, like the organizational culture, but also the things that come up in those conversations really do help you get better and make your products better. It doesn't mean you stop that feature, but you are thinking about it. And I think that is the future of technologists like us and operators that maybe don't come from, specifically a finance background, or don't come from, you don't come from an employee benefits, you're thinking about health, and like when you start to bring different voices to the table, you start to really get depth and anti-design bias that I'm really, or anti-bias design that I think is the future and needs to be the future.
That's really cool.
I equally agree. I'm also super fascinated. Well, of course, really interested in financial inclusion and the future of our product and how we can start to address those needs. And I'm also really excited to start to figure out how DeFi might come into our conversation and how crypto can, frankly, make a more meaningful play within the financial inclusion and really deconstruct the kind of archaic financial services system that we're kind of beholden to now.
Thank you. Thank you both for your time, for your thoughtful answers. I can't wait to meet you both in person. I need a reason to go up to the Northwest.
It's beautiful. This is the
yeah,
best
I know.
season. Come on up.
I know. I'm going to make my way right now, right after this call.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Better come now because it'll get rainy in a week. So you better come.
Well, thank you both. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for your time. This is a joy.
And for those listening, please go check them out. Go check out Nav.it. I know I've said Nav.it. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's Nav.
Yeah.
Nav.it.
Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Nav.it, and you can find them in the App Store. You can find them on the website. We've just done some collaborations where they've you guys have been featured in our blog, and we look forward to doing more together in order to make people healthier, happier, more financially well. So thank you both, and excited to just continue jamming.
Thanks so much, John.
Thanks so much, John.